Hi, I'm Nick.
I'm Jade.
I'm Nikki.
And together, we're the Nova Program Development Team. After our first meeting with Nova, we were given the task of researching global trends in radio. From this, we're able to split the world into different sections and narrow down the scope of the project, allowing us to find two key areas that we have chosen to focus on. One being radio content, including comedy, music and radio dramas, and two, social media strategy.
Through researching trends of radio media in the UK, a few main points were uncovered. Overall time spent listening to radio is falling, however viewership is only mildly decreasing, less than 1% yearly, which is good compared to other traditional medias such as newspapers. There is a strong focus on BBC radio, which is government and taxpayer-funded radio. However, young people under 45 years are more likely to listen to commercial radio stations over the BBC. This is a stark contrast to the youth segment of Australia who both listen to commercial and government-funded radios such as Triple J. However, the BBC caters to all audiences by live streaming comedy festivals, youth music festivals like Glastonbury and classical music, catering for many different audiences. There is also a major focus on long-running radio dramas such as The Archers, which has been running since 1950 till present day. These two major trends could be presented to Nova to translate to a modern Australian audience.
Okay, so let's talk about the US. And when it comes to the US, satellite radio is king. Unlike in Australia, where we battle between AM and FM, commercial versus government, the satellite radio is dominating the US marketplace. For example, a station such as SiriusXM, which combined two of the US's biggest satellite broadcasting networks, is completely wiping out terrestrial radio. When it comes to a lot of cars, for example, which is a major captive marketplace for radio, a lot of the technology in new cars now encompasses satellite technology, giving listeners the ability to listen to what they want, when they want. SiriusXM and satellite radio is a lot like Radio Netflix, giving people the choice to listen to what they want, unlike being forced to listen to what they have to when it comes to commercial radio in Australia. So what can Australia learn from this? While satellite radio may be in its infancy in Australia, we've already seen streaming services like Spotify drop in and start to take up the market share, giving listeners what they want. So, Australia, it's time to pick up our game.
So New Zealand radio is very much like Australian radio in that it has similar formatting and trends, so I looked more at Canadian radio, which is very similar to the UK and America. Canadian radio has a large list of past and present, many of them long-running drama and comedy shows, as well as having a major radio station, SiriusXM, which is actually a satellite subscription-based media platform. The national broadcaster CBC has a similar layout to the BBC in the UK, and they also regularly post to social media new music and new local artists, something that local artists in Australia have been asking for in recent years. Additionally, radio has a huge reach in Canada, with 93% of Canadian 18 to 24-year-olds reached weekly, and 96% of Canadians 35 to 34-year-olds reached weekly. 30% listen to radio via non-traditional platforms like through the internet, and 29% listen to radio while using the internet. This last statistic is particularly important in terms of syncing radio content with social media, providing extra exposure for the radio content. The reach Canadian radio has, as well as the new ways in which people access the radio, much like trends in the US and the UK, are all areas worth further research when looking at program development for the Australian market.
The most impending challenge to face the radio industry is the development of new technologies, which are beginning to eclipse older traditional communication and entertainment systems. It is imperative to the future of radio that the industry begins to tailor content to listeners in a revolutionary new way. People no longer want to sit and listen to a program they do not relate to or enjoy, as there are simply too many other options to change to.
Moving outside the traditional radio communication is important. Creating strong face-to-face marketing techniques within Australian community is the key. The Triple J Amazing Race is a terrific example of directly engaging your target market through radio, media and personal contact. It is imperative to Nova's success that the key is to not only tap into what other stations are doing locally, but also globally. Assessing global trends and tailoring it to an Australian market is important to the project.
So other challenges we've faced as a group have been narrowing down the scope of the project and keeping in mind that Nova are very restricted by advertising and contracts, and how we get around that will be a challenge throughout the project. Another challenge we faced as a group was that 2 out of 3 of us were absent for the first initial meeting with Nova, so we were a bit late in starting with the research, and we also had to be filled in about what was spoken about in the first meeting. However, we overcame this through a lot of communication over Facebook and face-to-face meetings, one with our project supervisor. Despite this issue early on in the project, we believe we have overcome this. We know the path we want to go down in terms of research and development, and we are on schedule.
We are talking global trends, but it is important to touch on close competitors within the Brisbane market. Their competitor, 97.3, posts more relevant Facebook content to their show. However, it doesn't show as much engagement with posts. We are aiming to build engagement through social media through a few possible ways. Firstly, by making it more current and relatable to the music, content, and stories which are played on the radio, along with interlinking social media posts with possible content development ideas.
Last week was a very important week for commercial radio, with the second radio ratings survey results being released. And it has been good news for Nova. Breakfast show Ash, Kip and Lutzi holding a solid 11.6 share of the Brisbane market. But we're not popping champagne corks just yet, because rivals 97.3 and Robin, Terry and Bob on the Breakfast Ship are still holding a 1.9 share lead of the marketplace. Also, 97.3 have consolidated their position as Brisbane's #1 FM station, moving that lead out to 2.1. Well, this is where we want to help. Remember back in 2005 when Nova actually trademarked the tagline "Sounds Different"? Now this might be old news, but with rivals Hit 105, or was it B105? Hit 105? B105? Hit 105, only sitting at 0.4% behind Nova, I think it's time that Nova sounds different again, and this is where we come in. We believe that Nova can and will be Brisbane's #1 FM station, but we need to look local. We need to get down to the grassroots.
We understand that Nova must meet certain requirements from record companies when choosing which songs to play. However, there is a huge demand from the local music scene that commercial radio should support more local music. This is something we will look into, maybe an unearthed or new local artist feature, once a day at least, or at a particular time slot so that people know that's when to expect new local music.
This new segment then could be advertised actively on Nova's Facebook page and across social media platforms, allowing for a lot more engagement with its listeners. Not only that, it would actually be contributing towards the Australian music scene, bringing over a lot more listeners from different stations and different platforms. Plus, with the added support of known and trusted radio hosts, it's definitely going to garner a lot more attention from the local scene.
Now that we've established the 2 areas we want to look at being content and social media, it is now a matter of researching and narrowing down ideas to pitch to Nova in mid-May.
We will do this by researching our own markets and then narrowing that down to the Australian market to further develop content ideas.
Thanks!